do you think the NCAA should allow the potentially early high school enrollees to play in the bowl games?
Here's what we got to do, Ari. The bowls as currently constructed are not long for this world. People don't really see them as rewards as much as they used to. They're just sort of there. Opt-outs are a problem if you're not in the playoff, especially I think now that if you're not in the playoff, those bowl games are going to feel even more sort of worthless. You've got to think outside the box. And I think my plan has a lot of holes in it and some logistical things you got to fix.
Will you spit it out?
Move the bowls to the start of the season. Make them preseason exhibitions in week 0.
So they would still count towards your record?
They count
but they would be celebrated in the same way, but people would be excited because the pageantry of it would be the beginning of the year.
Yes.
I've heard this before. I think that, so I'm covering the Cotton Bowl. I know a lot about Ohio State, obviously, with my past there. I think covering that game is going to be great if like half their players don't play and you get to see the young players that are the future of the team. Like I know the Cotton Bowl is supposed to be I think that Mizzou probably wants to win it or cares about winning it more than Ohio State.
Big deal for Mizzou. Not a big deal for Ohio State. Mm-hmm.
Ohio State fans don't care about this game. Ohio State's players are going to opt out, and they're already on to repair mode after what happened against Michigan.
Is Devin Brown going to start, by the way?
If Devin Brown plays the majority of the snaps, or if Lincoln Kienholz plays the majority of the snaps, or young freshmen or young players on the team come in and get to play, some of those young wide receivers that we know so much about, that to me is like a spring game, but actually matters, or is real reps against a team that is as good as Mizzou. I find that to be very compelling as well. Now that's not what they're designed to be. But if you have really good teams who have a lot of really good young players who don't feel satisfied by that as they're ending to their season, then it's far more compelling to me than watching Kyle McCord come back and play. By the way, if you've been living under a rock, Ohio State starting quarterback Kyle McCord is out into the portal, and so is receiver Julian Fleming, the former #1 overall player in the state of Pennsylvania. Both are reportedly going to Nebraska, and that is what I meant about Matt Rule and his competence. That'll be interesting to see if he can pull that off. Maybe he will. But if you do it at the beginning of the year, it saves the sanctity of those bowls because, the Cotton Bowl, if the Cotton Bowl is just Texas versus LSU at the Cotton Bowl, and it's sponsored by the Cotton Bowl, everybody in the country would watch it. That said, how do you create the matchups? What happens to the postseason?
It's 2 from the season before.
So what does it mean then? Does it mean that if you don't make the 12-team playoff, then your season just ends at the end of the year?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, you got to think that out. If that's your thing, then this means
I think ultimately that the second tier bowls outside of the G5 teams who get in and are very excited, that system, like the Citrus Bowls of the world, the Texas Bowls of the world, those games have never been less relevant and less valuable or less interesting. Interest is waning. It is going to further wane, dare I say, flatline in the era of the playoff when you've got playoff games happening while all these games are happening and they are turned into a sideshow in some ways. I don't know how to fix it. Yeah, but you can save it. They're not what they once were. You have to, if you're going to care about the bowls and want to preserve some level of a bowl.
I just think there's too many of them, Dave. I think there's too. I mean, everybody, like, the thing that's crazy about this is that people watch these games more than like regular NBA games, regular season NBA games. Like the ratings of like the Quick Lane Bowl, as Daniel Garrett just said, probably like people are gambling on it. We love college football. Like work is slow that month. Like people sit on their couches on Tuesday, December 22nd, and watch Western Michigan play. And a MAC game. Like, I watch all the games. So from a rating standpoint, I think they're successful. But if you're trying to save fan buy-in to like actually care about them, then put them at the beginning of the year, I guess. But that just
sell those games out at the beginning of the year, man.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Imagine if Ohio State opened up the season next year on a neutral field against Mizzou. They go from a game that nobody cares about to a game that I think fans would be pretty excited about.
The only thing that's bizarre about that is that the players that got you there might not be there the next year.
Who cares?
But it does, yeah. I mean, no one cares about the game now. So the players who played, the players who played in the games this year aren't even going to be playing in it.
Exactly.
So, okay. I guess I can get on board with that. And then you have the bowl trips and all the things, and like that's how people begin their season. I think I can get behind that.
This sort of parallels the journalism industry in some ways, Ari, in that the journalism industry largely, and by this I'm speaking mostly of newspapers. I came up in newspapers. I love newspapers, but too many of them just thought, well, we can cut and trim our way to profitability, forgetting the fact that you just make yourself a worse product. And the Bulls are becoming a worse and worse product. You have to think revolutionary. You have to do something big if you want to just not continue to be less and less and less relevant and less and less and less valuable. And that's where the Bulls are headed right now with the playoff. Because Ari, are you sitting down again?
Are we in the tree trust?
Gonna expand again, Ari.
I know it's my move to whisper.
It's gonna expand again. I hate to break it to you.
With the playoff?
Yes.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. So listen, be forward thinking. Get ahead of this because the playoff's gonna expand again and it's gonna get worse. And then you don't really have an event in some ways. And those games are gonna be on campus and they're not gonna be bowls. And we'll have to figure out a lot of questions.